The two exceptions are fascinating because one's Newcastle and one's Sunderland, and they've obviously split. They're the ones no longer with us. What did Newcastle do right and Sunderland do wrong?
Um, well, they both had, paradoxically, they started off by both having owners who wanted to get rid of the clubs in the form of Ellis Short and Mike Ashley. But what Mike Ashley very quickly realised that if he sold Newcastle as a championship club, he might get, if he was lucky, £80 million for it. If he sells it in the Premier League, he could sell it for his asking price presently is 325 million. So he said, right, I'm going to gamble. I'm going to break the bank in terms of spending money. And therefore, he signed loads of players. He kept the majority of decent players in his squad. Okay, he let Wijnaldum go, he let Sissoko go, but he signed Matt Ritchie from Bournemouth, and he did that by offering Matt Ritchie more money to play for Newcastle United in the Championship than Bournemouth were offering him to play in the Premier League. Matt Ritchie, very decent player. He's well thought of at Bournemouth, and they offered him good money, but Newcastle just blew them out the water. So Newcastle just said, right, we're going to spend whatever it takes to get ourselves back into the Premier League. And they did that. And they lost a load of money in 2017, and their wage bill was off the scale. It's the highest wage bill of all in history in the Championship.
What was it, Kieran?
I think it was around about 100 million. I will
100?
Find out that. Let me just very quickly.
I was going to complain about Norwich's being 55 in 2016. Was it actually that high?
Let me very quickly come up with my numbers here. I've got a big spreadsheet, and I'll come back to you with that in just a second.
Yeah,
no problem. I'm just calling up some numbers.
What about Sunderland in the meantime, Kieran?
Sunderland's owner Ellis Short, he took the view. By this stage, he was bored of football because he'd been running Sunderland for a number of years, and it was costing him literally every Monday. He was having to write out a cheque for £200,000 to £300,000 a week, and that's when they were in the Premier League. Sunderland were managing to lose money in the Premier League. He'd had enough. Therefore he turned round to Martin Bain. Have you seen Sunderland Till I Die?
Well, I'm an Ipswich fan, so I just watched it through my fingers like that because I saw exactly the same thing that was happened to us this season. But yes, go ahead.
Well, effectively, he said to the chief executive at the start of the season, I want you to try to run this club and it not cost me 200 grand a week. So you were left with that situation where you had, again, legacy players, the infamous Jack Rodwell scenario where he was being paid £70,000 a week. And you mentioned earlier, can we put in relegation clauses into contracts? When he was originally signed, Sunderland failed to do that. And for whatever reason, his career went off the rails, but they still had a legal obligation to pay him. And there were lots of issues. And Sunderland has been poorly run historically. If you look at the number of chief executives they've got through, if you look at the turnover of managers, there clearly is something toxic at the club in terms of the culture. And the relegation into the Championship just enhanced that. There was no sense of togetherness, and the club therefore just fell through that division. It'll be very interesting to see what their results are. I do occasionally ask Stuart Donald on Twitter any chance of them coming out, and he's got more important things to deal with, I suspect. And I fully understand his position.
4 million on a striker 2 months back as well.
That's amazing. And Sunderland have that money because remember, Sunderland is a crazy situation.
Year 2 of parachute payments.
They got £35 million of parachutes in a division where the average income is £5 million a year.
Oh, God.
So if they don't get promoted, it will be the biggest underachievement of all time.